At 4:12 a.m., on a night so quiet I could hear the hum of the refrigerator from the bedroom, my front door exploded inward. Not knocked, not rattled, kicked. A woman's voice shrieked through the darkness. "I have master key authority! You don't get to ignore HOA law!" My wife gasped beside me. My heart didn't race. It locked in. Because after 23 years in military law enforcement, you don't panic when chaos arrives. You assess. And what I assessed in those first 2 seconds was this: a middle-aged woman in silk pajamas, barefoot, waving a shiny object and screaming like she owned my house. What she clearly forgot was that my dogs were already awake. Ranger and Echo, both 90-pound retired military canines, launched off the floor at the exact same moment. Not barking, not growling, moving. The woman froze mid-scream, eyes wide, confidence evaporating, as 2 massive German shepherds skidded to a stop less than 5 feet away, bodies tense, teeth bared, awaiting a single command. She dropped the key. It clattered across my hardwood floor, and suddenly the self-appointed queen of the neighborhood was sobbing, backed against my wall, shrieking for help she had absolutely no right to expect. That was the night Melissa Hardwick, president of the Cedar Ridge Estates HOA, finally handed me the proof I needed to destroy her entire little empire. And yes, I recorded every second. If you've ever dealt with an HOA nightmare like this, hit like and drop a comment right now. Would you press charges if someone broke into your home claiming HOA authority? Now let me rewind, because this didn't start with a broken door. It started 6 months earlier. My name is Daniel Cross, 52 years old, retired military police, currently working as a private security consultant. After decades overseas dealing with actual threats, I made the mistake of believing suburban life would be peaceful. My wife Elena is a trauma nurse at a VA hospital. Our twin daughters, Avery and Lila, are 16 and inseparable from our dogs. We moved to Cedar Ridge Estates specifically because the realtor promised it was quiet, veteran-friendly, and well-managed. That was the first lie. The second lie arrived a week after we unpacked. I was in the backyard doing calming drills with Ranger. He still wakes up from nightmares tied to his deployment, when I heard sharp heels clicking on stone. Before I could turn, the scent hit me. Vanilla perfume. Overpowering. Aggressive. "Are you aware your animals are violating multiple community noise standards?" a woman snapped. I turned to see Melissa Hardwick, 40-something, bleached hair sprayed solid, designer sunglasses despite the shade, holding a clipboard like it was a weapon. "You have 30 days to remove the animals or relocate," she said, already turning away. "Appeals require a $75 fee." That was our welcome. What Melissa didn't know is that I'd spent my career dismantling people who abused authority, and she was textbook. Within days, the harassment escalated. Noise complaints filed with the city, anonymous calls to animal control, even a welfare request claiming our dogs were psychologically dangerous to children. All lies, all documented. Then Elena came home one afternoon shaking. She contacted CPS, she said, slamming papers onto the counter. She claimed our dogs were traumatizing the neighborhood kids. That was the moment this stopped being annoying and became personal. When I pulled footage from our exterior cameras, I discovered something interesting. Melissa had been walking door to door, lying, telling neighbors I was unstable, that military PTSD made me unpredictable, that my dogs were trained weapons. And she was convincing people to sign statements, people who'd never even spoken to us. That night, my daughter Avery asked me why kids at school were calling us the scary army family. I didn't sleep. Instead, I researched, and what I found made me smile, because Cedar Ridge Estates HOA wasn't legitimate. No proper elections, no filed bylaws, no certified authority. Melissa wasn't enforcing rules, she was pretending. So I upgraded our security. 8 cameras, audio recording, cloud backups. If she wanted a war of intimidation, she picked the wrong house. Because while she was playing HOA dictator, I was building a case, and she was about to make the mistake that ended everything. 3 nights later, at 4:12 a.m., Melissa Hardwick decided she didn't need paperwork anymore. She decided to break into my house. What she didn't realize was that her fake authority, her fake key, and her ego were about to put her on camera committing a felony. And when the sun came up, her entire HOA kingdom was already collapsing. The morning after Melissa Hardwick kicked down my front door, Cedar Ridge Estates woke up buzzing. Not because of police lights, not because of sirens, but because Melissa did what narcissists always do when they lose control. She rewrote the story. By 9 a.m., the neighborhood group chat was exploding. Emergency situation last night. HOA president threatened. Military homeowner unstable. I watched the messages scroll by while sipping black coffee, calm as stone, because I had the footage. Every scream, every lie, every second of her illegal entry. Elena sat across from me, scrolling through her phone, her jaw tight. "She's saying you threatened her," she said quietly, "that you unleashed the dogs." I smiled. She's panicking. And desperate people make beautiful mistakes. Melissa's version of events spread fast. She claimed she was conducting a routine safety inspection after multiple complaints. She claimed I refused entry. She claimed my dogs were aggressive weapons. She even claimed she feared for her life. There was just one problem. Every claim she made was provably false, and I wasn't the only one who knew it. By noon, animal control arrived. Officer Ramirez, late 30s, tired eyes, no patience for nonsense, stood in my living room watching Ranger and Echo sit perfectly still. "They're calmer than most therapy dogs I see," he said, scratching Echo behind the ear. I handed him the footage. He watched Melissa kicking the door, watched her scream, watched her lie. He sighed. "Sir, unofficially," he said, "she's not helping herself." Officially, the report read, "No aggression observed. Complaint unsubstantiated." Strike one. Melissa didn't slow down. She escalated. That afternoon, Elena's phone rang at work, and school administrator, concerned. Apparently, someone had called claiming our dogs were connected to violent military conditioning and that our home environment was potentially unsafe. Our daughters came home shaken. "People keep asking if we're dangerous," Lila said, eyes glossy. "Someone said your dogs were trained to attack," Avery whispered. That's when something inside me snapped into place. Not rage, focus. Because when someone targets your children, you don't react emotionally. You end them legally. That night, I reviewed every second of footage from the past month, and that's when I noticed the pattern. Melissa wasn't random. She appeared on camera twice a day, 6 a.m., 6 p.m., always with her phone out, always positioning herself for a reaction, always narrating. "She's building a case," Elena said. "No," I replied, "she's manufacturing one." So I dug deeper. Public records, HOA filings, meeting minutes, or rather, the lack of them. Cedar Ridge Estates had no valid HOA election on record for over 3 years, no quorum documentation, no certified board votes, no financial disclosures. Melissa wasn't an HOA president, she was a cosplayer with a printer. Then came the meeting, or rather the meeting we weren't invited to. A notice appeared on every door except ours. Emergency Community Safety Forum, hosted at Melissa's house, 2 p.m. on a Wednesday. I took a personal day. Elena went undercover. She returned an hour later looking stunned. "She had a slideshow," Elena said. "A slideshow about us." Photos of Ranger and Echo, zoomed, cropped, mislabeled, charts about community fear metrics, claims that property values were at risk. She even had fake expense reports for security consulting. That's when Elena noticed something important. The numbers didn't add up. Vendor names she'd never heard of, round dollar amounts, no invoices. Elena used to investigate insurance fraud. This was amateur hour. "She's skimming," Elena said. "A lot." That night, our dining room turned into a war room. We laid out everything: footage, financials, timelines, and what emerged wasn't just harassment, it was a pattern. Previous homeowners, military families, all gone within months, all sold under market value, all properties resold to the same investment group. Melissa wasn't just power tripping, she was clearing inventory. I filed formal complaints, state HOA oversight, civil rights office, housing authority. I documented every interaction. Then Melissa made her next move. She filed for a restraining order, claimed I was stalking her, claimed my military background made me dangerous, claimed I conducted surveillance. When the sheriff served the papers, I laughed because this was no longer her game. This was mine, and court requires evidence, which she didn't have, and I did. The hearing was scheduled for the following Wednesday. Melissa didn't know it yet, but she had just forced herself under oath. The night before the hearing, my phone rang. An unknown number. A woman whispering urgently. "I don't want trouble," she said, "but she's lying. She told us what to say." I recorded the call. Then another came in, and another. Neighbors breaking, scared, ashamed. Melissa's control was slipping, and people were starting to talk. Melissa Hardwick thought a restraining order would scare me. What she didn't realize was that she'd just dragged her lies into a courtroom, under oath, with cameras waiting. And when a judge started asking questions, her entire fake authority was about to collapse in real time. By the time Wednesday morning arrived, Melissa Hardwick had already lost. She just didn't know it yet. The restraining order hearing was scheduled for 2 p.m., but I was awake before sunrise, sitting at the kitchen table with 3 laptops open and a legal pad filled with notes. Elena poured coffee and watched me quietly. "You okay?" she asked. "I'm calm," I said. "That's how I know she's in trouble." Because panic is loud, preparation is silent. Melissa showed up to the courthouse like she was attending a business luncheon. Designer blazer, perfect hair, oversized folder clutched to her chest like a prop. She didn't look at me, didn't need to. People like her don't acknowledge threats they believe they control. The judge did not share her confidence. "Miss Hardwick," he said, adjusting his glasses, "you're requesting a restraining order based on alleged threats, surveillance, and aggressive behavior. You understand you're under oath." "Yes, Your Honor," she said smoothly. "I fear for my safety." Then she testified. She said I stalked her. She said my dogs lunged. She said I used my military background to intimidate her. And she said it all clearly, confidently, and completely falsely. When it was my turn, I stood. "Your Honor," I said, "may I submit video evidence?" Her head snapped toward me for the first time. The footage played. Every angle, every timestamp. Melissa breaking into my house. Melissa screaming. Melissa lying. The courtroom went silent. The judge leaned forward. "Miss Hardwick," he said slowly, "do you wish to revise your statement?" She didn't. She doubled down. That was her fatal error. The judge dismissed her petition on the spot, not just denied, dismissed with prejudice. Then he asked a question that changed everything. "Mr. Cross," he said, "have you reported this behavior to any oversight agencies?" "Yes, Your Honor," I replied. "Multiple." He nodded. "I'm referring this matter for further review." Melissa's face drained of color. That was the moment she realized this wasn't an HOA dispute anymore. This was a record. Within 48 hours, the pressure hit her from every direction. The state HOA office sent a compliance notice. The city requested documentation. The housing authority opened an inquiry. And then the finances cracked. Because once regulators ask questions, paper trails start screaming. Elena's forensic instincts were right. The vendors she listed, shell companies, registered to P.O. boxes, linked back to her personal accounts. Money labeled community safety consulting was paying her mortgage, landscaping emergencies that never happened, security services that didn't exist. This wasn't mismanagement, this was embezzlement. I wasn't the only one digging. Former homeowners started calling, military families, couples who'd sold under pressure, all with the same story: complaints, fines, harassment, forced sales. Every house they sold, bought by the same investment firm. Melissa wasn't just abusing power, she was engineering exits. That's when my attorney made the call. "This crosses into federal territory," he said. "Housing discrimination, fraud, conspiracy. And federal agencies don't knock politely." Melissa sensed it. You could see it on the cameras, the pacing, the phone calls, the drive-bys. She circled our house like a shark. Then she escalated again. She called animal control again, this time claiming the dogs attacked children near the bus stop. Officer Ramirez showed up with 2 colleagues. They watched Ranger and Echo perform obedience drills. Sit, stay, heel, perfect. "Sir," Ramirez said quietly, "someone is lying very hard." That afternoon, another neighbor came forward, then another. Melissa had pressured them, threatened fines, promised protection. People were done being scared. That's when the restraining order denial hit the neighborhood hard. Screenshots spread, rumors flipped. Suddenly, Melissa wasn't the protector, she was the problem. She tried to regain control with an emergency HOA meeting, no notice, no quorum, at the community center. I live-streamed it. Melissa showed up furious. She accused me of corruption, claimed I was manipulating authorities. Then someone asked for financial transparency. She snapped, started shouting. Someone recorded it. The clip went viral locally, and that's when the FBI called. Special Agent Harris was polite, direct. "We'd like to ask you some questions regarding coordinated property sales and financial irregularities." I said yes. Melissa tried to spin it, claimed she was helping investors improve the community. The agents weren't impressed because they already had records, emails, phone logs, patterns. They didn't tell her she was under investigation. They didn't need to. She knew. The meltdown came 3 nights later. At 3:38 a.m., motion sensors tripped. Melissa was in my backyard with bolt cutters. She claimed she was inspecting unauthorized structures. Police arrived. She panicked, screamed about authority, claimed emergency powers. They arrested her for trespassing. Search incident to arrest revealed something special. A bag. Inside it, military surplus items with price tags, receipts in her purse. She was trying to plant evidence, frame me. That crossed the final line. Melissa Hardwick didn't just harass us, she tried to frame a veteran for a crime. And when federal agents connected the dots, they realized this HOA nightmare wasn't isolated, it was part of a bigger operation. The moment Melissa Hardwick was led away in handcuffs from my backyard, the entire power structure of Cedar Ridge Estates collapsed. She had spent years pretending to be untouchable, but the second a patrol car door slammed shut, everyone finally saw what she really was. A woman spiraling out of control, and now a woman on the radar of the federal government. 2 hours after her arrest, my phone rang. Blocked number. "Mr. Cross," a calm voice said, "this is Special Agent Harris with the FBI. We'd like to speak with you in person." I didn't hesitate. Elena didn't panic. We'd been preparing for this moment for weeks. The interview room was quiet, clean and cold. Agent Harris didn't raise his voice, didn't threaten, didn't rush. He simply laid everything out. "Your HOA president is coordinating property sales with a private investment group," he said, "specifically targeting military families." He slid a folder across the table. Inside were timelines, purchase records, phone logs, every family forced out, every house flipped. "This isn't harassment," he continued. "It's a pattern. And patterns are what federal prosecutors live for." Melissa, meanwhile, was unraveling. Our security cameras caught it all. She paced her driveway, argued with invisible enemies, made frantic phone calls. Neighbors reported her knocking on doors, demanding loyalty, claiming she was being framed by government collaborators. She tried to call an emergency HOA vote. No one showed. She tried to revoke access to community facilities. The city stepped in. She tried to intimidate witnesses. They started recording her. The fear she'd used as a weapon had turned against her. Then came the mistake that sealed her fate. Melissa called the FBI, repeatedly. She tried to report me, claimed I was stockpiling weapons, claimed my dogs were trained for domestic terrorism, claimed she had evidence. Agent Harris called me afterward. "She's confirming awareness of the investigation while attempting to redirect it," he said. "That's obstruction, another felony, added to the list." By the end of the week, the investigation widened. Federal housing authorities joined. Financial crimes analysts stepped in. Melissa's shell companies were exposed. Money trails mapped. Emails subpoenaed. The investment firm panicked. One executive flipped within days, provided full cooperation. Turns out Melissa wasn't just an enforcer. She was the entry point. She created pressure. They profited. And everyone got greedy. The neighborhood finally spoke up. An emergency community meeting was called. Legitimate this time. City officials present, attorneys, observers. I live-streamed it again. Melissa wasn't allowed within 500 feet. Her lawyer sat in the back, silent. Residents demanded answers, financial transparency, accountability. And then the city official stood. "There is no legally recognized HOA governing Cedar Ridge Estates," he said plainly. Gasps filled the room. Every fine, every rule, every threat, invalid. Years of intimidation reduced to nothing. That night, Melissa broke. She violated her release conditions, returned to the community center, screaming, claiming authority. Police responded. Again. This time, the charge was interference with an active federal investigation. She didn't resist. She sobbed, cried about betrayal, about how they were supposed to protect her. No one listened. 2 days later, indictments dropped. Federal charges, multiple counts, housing discrimination, wire fraud, conspiracy, attempted evidence tampering. The investment firm was raided, assets frozen, properties seized, and suddenly what started as an HOA dispute was national news. Elena watched the broadcast in silence. "Are you okay?" I asked. She nodded. "I'm thinking about how close she came to ruining us." She wasn't wrong, but she underestimated one thing. Veterans document everything. Melissa's attorney reached out, offered cooperation, a plea. She wanted to trade names, emails, bank access, anything to reduce her sentence. The FBI accepted, because they already had enough. They just wanted everything. The final blow came quietly. At dawn, federal agents executed a search warrant on Melissa's home. Boxes removed, computers seized, luxurious items tagged. Her house, once the symbol of her control, was now evidence. Neighbors watched in silence. No cheers, no gloating, just relief. That evening, Avery asked a question I won't forget. "Dad, are we safe now?" I looked at the dogs, at Elena, at the neighborhood. "Yes," I said, "she can't hurt anyone anymore." But the story wasn't over, because Melissa still believed she had one last move, and she planned to make it public. Melissa Hardwick was facing federal prison. Her empire was gone, her allies flipped, but she wasn't finished. She demanded one final community meeting, claiming she had proof that would expose everyone. Melissa Hardwick's last move was exactly what you'd expect from someone who had spent years controlling people through fear. She demanded attention. 3 days after federal indictments were unsealed, notices appeared across Cedar Ridge estates. Final community meeting. Truth revealed. She claimed she had proof that she'd been framed, proof that the investigation was corrupted, proof that I was the real threat. And somehow she convinced herself that going public would save her. The city approved the meeting under one condition: law enforcement present, media allowed, and everything recorded. Melissa thought that meant she'd finally get her stage. She had no idea it was a courtroom without walls. The community center was packed. Neighbors, reporters, city officials, veterans advocates. I stood near the back with Elena, watching cameras get set up. "Do you think she actually believes this will work?" Elena whispered. "Yes," I said. "That's what makes it dangerous. People like Melissa don't retreat. They self-destruct, loudly." At exactly 7:07 p.m., Melissa walked in. No handcuffs, no blazer, just raw desperation wrapped in confidence she hadn't earned. She carried a thick binder and a USB drive like holy relics. "I'm glad you're all here," she said, stepping to the podium without being invited. "Tonight, you're going to hear the truth." Murmurs spread. She pointed at me. "This man has manipulated authorities using his military background. He's weaponized sympathy and fear." She clicked the projector. Photos appeared. My security cameras, my dogs, my shed, all labeled with aggressive captions. "This is surveillance. This is intimidation." A city attorney raised her hand. "Ms. Hardwick, you are under federal indictment. You are advised." "I will not be silenced," Melissa screamed. That was when everything unraveled. Jennifer, the forensic accountant, stood. "Would you like to explain these transactions?" she asked, projecting spreadsheets behind Melissa. Dates, amounts, Melissa's personal accounts. Melissa froze. "That's fake, manipulated data." Then Special Agent Harris stepped forward. "Those records were subpoenaed directly from your bank, under federal warrant." The room went silent. Melissa laughed, a sharp, broken sound. "You're all in on it," she said. "You needed someone to blame." She pulled out the USB drive. "This," she announced, "contains evidence of illegal military equipment stored in this neighborhood." Agent Harris didn't move. He didn't need to. "Ma'am," he said evenly, "those items were purchased by you, with your credit card, receipts recovered from your residence." Her face collapsed. Not anger, not fear. Recognition. She knew. Melissa slammed the binder on the podium. "I built this community. I protected you people." Someone shouted back, "You stole from us." Another voice joined. "You lied." Another, You threatened my family. The dam broke. Years of fear evaporated in minutes. Melissa tried to regain control, raised her voice, pointed fingers, accused everyone. And then she said the one thing she couldn't take back. They deserved it, she yelled. They were bad for property values. The room exploded. Veterans stood. Families shouted. Reporters leaned in. Agent Harris stepped forward. That's enough. He turned to uniformed officers. Ms. Hardwick, you are under arrest for violation of release conditions and obstruction of a federal investigation. The cuffs came out. Melissa screamed, "This is illegal! I have authority!" Agent Harris answered calmly, "No, you never did." As they escorted her out, she looked back at me. Pure hatred, pure defeat. The fallout was immediate. Within hours, her remaining assets were frozen. The investment firm issued a public apology. The city formally dissolved the fake HOA, and the story went national. The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Veterans, families, people across the country who'd been targeted by HOAs just like this. They weren't just watching, they were learning. A week later, Elena stood in our backyard watching Ranger work with a young veteran struggling to trust again. "You know," she said softly, "she thought power came from fear." I nodded. She forgot where real power comes from. Melissa pled guilty. 14 federal counts, 7 years recommended, restitution ordered. Her lawyer didn't even argue, because the evidence was overwhelming, because she documented her own crimes. But the most satisfying moment came quietly. A letter arrived from a family who'd fled years earlier. "Thank you for finishing what we couldn't." Elena cried. I didn't. I just sat there listening to the dogs breathe, knowing something had finally been set right.
6 months later, Cedar Ridge Estates doesn't even feel like the same place. The silence is different now. Not tense, not watchful, not afraid, just peaceful. I'm sitting in my backyard as Ranger and Echo work with a young Marine named Tyler, early 20s, missing part of his left leg, eyes that still scan corners like danger lives there. The dogs understand him. They always do. And that's when it hits me. Melissa Hardwick didn't just lose her fake authority, she lost everything she tried to control. Her sentencing happened on a gray Tuesday morning. No cameras inside the courtroom, no theatrics, just consequences. 14 federal charges: housing discrimination, wire fraud, conspiracy, attempted obstruction. 7 years in federal prison, mandatory restitution, permanent loss of her real estate license. The judge didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "You weaponized fear against people who served this country," he said. "You abused trust for profit, and you did it repeatedly." Melissa didn't cry. She just stared ahead, hollow. The woman who once screamed about authority left in shackles. The money came next. Federal seizures totaled over $2 million. Every house flipped through intimidation was traced. Every shell company dismantled. The investment firm folded overnight. Executives took plea deals. And for the first time, families who'd been forced out got calls they never expected. "You can come home." The Martinez family returned from Texas. The Collins couple, nearly divorced under the stress, bought back their place 2 streets over. People who'd lost everything finally got something back. Closure. Melissa's house was the final symbol, the one she used as a throne. The place where she hosted exclusive meetings and plotted who didn't belong. It went into foreclosure quietly. No headlines, no drama, just a listing. That's when the community stepped in, using recovered funds and donations that poured in after the story spread. We did something no one saw coming. We bought it, and we turned it into something better. The Cedar Ridge Veterans Resource Center opened 4 months later. Therapy rooms, legal aid offices, job placement support, service dog training facilities. Where intimidation once lived, healing moved in. The irony wasn't lost on anyone, especially me. Elena found her own peace through it. She started hosting cooking therapy nights for military spouses. The kitchen, once a place of stress, became a space of laughter. Flour everywhere, stories shared, healing happening without anyone forcing it. Avery and Lila started a youth advocacy group, teaching other teens how to recognize harassment, how to document it, how to stand up without becoming cruel. They stopped being the scary military family. They became leaders. As for the HOA, a real one was formed.
transparent elections, public finances, anti-discrimination bylaws written in plain language. Jennifer became treasurer. Carlos took over operations. Veteran hiring preference was added unanimously. Turns out, when fear leaves, communities actually function. Property values rose, not because people were scared, but because people trusted each other. Sometimes neighbors ask me if I regret pushing back, if I wish we'd just moved. I always shake my head, because if we had, Melissa would still be doing this to someone else, and the families after them, and the ones after that. Bullies don't stop on their own. They stop when someone refuses to bend. Last week, Tyler finished his therapy certification. He hugged Ranger, then Echo, then me. "I didn't think I'd ever feel normal again," he said. I smiled. Normal's overrated. Safe matters more. Every evening now I stand in the same backyard Melissa once tried to invade. I listen to kids playing, dogs barking happily, neighbors talking over fences, the sound of a community that healed itself. And sometimes when the wind is right, I think about how close we came to losing it all. Then I remember something important. Power built on fear always collapses. Truth just waits. Thanks for watching. If this story made you angry, satisfied, or proud of standing up to corruption, hit like, drop a comment, subscribe for more HOA stories where the bully always gets exposed. Because somewhere out there, another Melissa thinks she's untouchable, and she's wrong.